New horror story. The Halloween House, Mrs. Morrison's special candy. I've been a real estate agent for 15 years, and I thought I'd seen every trick in the book to sell a difficult property. But the Morrison house on Elm Street was different. It had been on the market for 3 Halloweens in a row, and every potential buyer walked away after viewing it on October 31st. My boss gave me an ultimatum: sell the Morrison house this Halloween or find a new job. So I decided to spend Halloween night there myself to figure out what was scaring everyone away. The house was built in 1892, a beautiful Victorian with original hardwood floors and stained glass windows. During the day, it was stunning. But as October 31st evening approached, something felt wrong. I arrived at 6 p.m. with my laptop, some coffee, and a bag of candy in case any trick-or-treaters showed up. The first hour was peaceful. I sat in the front parlor updating listings and answering emails. Around 7:30, I heard the first doorbell. A little girl stood on the porch dressed as a witch, maybe 8 years old. Her costume looked handmade, with a pointed hat and a crooked grin painted on her face. "Trick or treat," she said cheerfully. I dropped some candy in her bag, but she didn't leave. Instead, she looked past me into the house. "Is Mrs. Morrison home?" she asked. "Mrs. Morrison hasn't lived here for years, sweetie. The house is for sale." The little girl's painted smile seemed to droop. "But she always gives out the best candy. The special kind that makes you feel all warm and sleepy." Something about the way she said it made me uncomfortable. "Sorry, honey. Maybe try the house next door?" She nodded sadly and walked away. But I noticed she didn't go to any other houses. She just disappeared into the shadows between the streetlights. More trick-or-treaters came over the next hour. A pirate, a ghost, a vampire. All kids I didn't recognize and all asking for Mrs. Morrison. Each one mentioned her special candy that made them feel warm and sleepy. Around 9 p.m., the doorbell rang again. This time it was a boy dressed as a skeleton, his face painted white with black circles around his eyes. "Is this Mrs. Morrison's house?" he asked. "No, she doesn't live here anymore," I repeated. The boy tilted his head. "But I've been coming here every Halloween for as long as I can remember. Mrs. Morrison always said we were her special children." I was getting genuinely creeped out now. "How long have you been coming here, son?" He thought for a moment. "Since 1982, I think. That was the first time I died. My blood went cold. I tried to laugh it off." "That's quite an imagination you have there." But the boy wasn't smiling. "Mrs. Morrison said if we kept coming back every Halloween, we could stay children forever. She put something special in her candy. Something that made us not hurt anymore." I looked closer at his costume. What I had thought was face paint was actually his skin. Pale, translucent, with dark hollows where his eyes should be. And his clothes weren't a costume. They were genuinely old, like from the 1980s. "I should go," I stammered, backing into the house. "But you can't leave," the boy said, stepping through the doorway without being invited. "Mrs. Morrison is waiting upstairs. She's been waiting for someone new to help with the candy." I ran toward the back of the house, but more children were coming through the windows, through the walls. All in costumes from different decades. All asking for Mrs. Morrison's special candy. I found the basement door and ran downstairs hoping to find another exit. Instead, I found Mrs. Morrison. She was sitting at an old wooden table, stirring a large pot of melted chocolate. Around her were jars filled with what looked like herbs, but when I looked closer, I saw they were labeled things like children's laughter and innocence and final breath. "Oh, good," she said without looking up. I was wondering when my new assistant would arrive. Halloween is always so busy, and these children have been so patient. She finally looked at me, and I saw that her eyes were completely black. "Now, would you prefer to help make the candy, or would you rather be an ingredient?" I'm writing this on my phone, hiding in the coal cellar. It's almost midnight. I can hear the children upstairs singing Halloween songs and waiting for their treats. Mrs. Morrison is calling my name. I think I'm going to be here for a very long time. If you really like this story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for daily horror stories. Thanks. New horror story? The costume shop? The dress that wasn't just a costume. I never believed in superstitions until I started working at Masquerade, the old costume shop on Crescent Street. The owner, Mr. Thorne, hired me in mid-October, right when business was picking up for Halloween. It seemed like the perfect seasonal job. Good pay, flexible hours, and I've always loved the creativity that comes with costumes and theater. The shop had been around since the 1940s, and it showed. The floor creaked with every step, and the racks of costumes cast strange shadows in the dim lighting. Mr. Thorne was in his 70s, thin and pale, with fingers that moved like spider legs when he handled the merchandise. There are 3 rules, he told me on my first day. 1. Never let anyone try on a costume after 9 p.m. 2. Never sell anything from the back room without asking me first. 3. If a customer asks for something authentic, you come get me immediately. The first 2 weeks went smoothly. I helped families find pirate costumes and superhero outfits and learned my way around the store's labyrinthine layout. The back room, I discovered, contained the vintage pieces, costumes from old theater productions, some dating back decades. They were beautiful but somehow unsettling, like they were waiting for something. Everything changed on October 29th. A woman came in around 8:45 p.m., just 15 minutes before closing. She was elegantly dressed, maybe 40 years old, with dark hair and pale skin that seemed to glow under the shop's antique lighting. "I need something authentic," she said, her voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. "Something with history." I remembered Mr. Thorne's 3rd rule and went to get him, but his office was empty. His coat was still on the chair, his coffee still warm, but he was nowhere to be found. When I returned to the front, it was past 9 p.m. I should have told the woman we were closed, but something about her presence made it hard to speak. "You'll have to come back tomorrow," I finally managed. "We're closed." She smiled, and her teeth seemed too white, too sharp. "But I can see exactly what I need right here." She walked past me toward the back room, moving with a fluid grace that made no sound on the creaking floorboards. I followed, my heart pounding. In the back room, she stopped in front of a particular costume I'd never noticed before. It was a Victorian-era dress, deep burgundy with intricate beadwork, hanging on a mannequin in the corner. The fabric seemed to shimmer despite the poor lighting. "This one," she said. "How much?" "I can't sell anything from back here without the owner's permission, yes." She turned to face me. "But Mr. Thorne won't be back for quite some time. He's indisposed." Something in her tone made my skin crawl. "What do you mean?" She began unbuttoning her modern dress. "Mr. Thorne has been very helpful over the years. Every Halloween, he lets me borrow a costume. Something beautiful, something that helps me blend in with your world. And every Halloween, I return it. Eventually." As her dress fell away, I saw that her skin wasn't pale. It was translucent. I could see dark veins underneath and something else, something moving. "You see," she continued, reaching for the Victorian dress, "I need to feed every Halloween. It's the only night when the veil is thin enough for me to cross over. And Mr. Thorne has been such a wonderful partner in our arrangement." She slipped into the Victorian dress, and immediately her appearance began to change. Her skin took on a healthy flush, her eyes brightened, and she looked completely human. "Where is Mr. Thorne?" I whispered. She gestured to the corner where the dress had been hanging. For the first time, I really looked at the mannequin. It wasn't a mannequin at all. It was Mr. Thorne, standing perfectly still, his eyes wide and terrified, his skin gray as plaster. "He'll be fine," she said, adjusting the dress's sleeves. "They always are eventually, though it does take them a few days to recover." I tried to run but found I couldn't move. My legs felt heavy, stiff. "Now," she said, walking toward me with that same predatory smile, "I need you to mind the shop while I'm out. There are still so many people celebrating Halloween tonight, and I do so hate to miss a good party." I wanted to scream, but my throat wouldn't work. I could feel my skin hardening, my thoughts becoming sluggish. "Don't worry," she said, patting my cheek with a hand that felt like ice. "I'll bring the dress back tomorrow night. I always do. And then you can go back to your normal life, just like Mr. Thorne." She walked toward the front door, pausing to flip the sign from open to closed. "Oh, and one more thing," she called back. "When I return tomorrow, there will be a new dress hanging in the back room. Something beautiful, something that will help me next year. You'll know which one I mean." The bell above the door chimed as she left, and I stood there in the darkness, unable to move, unable to speak, watching the shadows dance among the costumes. I can think, but I can't move. I can see, but I can't blink. And I know that tomorrow night she'll return with that dress, and I'll hang it in the back room, and next Halloween some other poor soul will be standing here while I'm out there, wearing their skin like a costume. The worst part? I'm starting to understand why Mr. Thorne agreed to help her. Because when she comes back tomorrow, I know I'll do anything she asks, just to feel human again. Thank you for listening. If you really like the story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more daily horror stories. New horror story: The Trick-or-Treat Route, Tommy's Secret Tradition. I love Halloween more than any other holiday, which is probably weird for a 35-year-old guy, but I don't care. Every year, I volunteer to take my nephew Marcus trick-or-treating while his parents hand out candy at home. Marcus is 7, and seeing Halloween through his eyes reminds me why the holiday is so magical. This year, Marcus insisted we follow the perfect route that his friend Tommy had told him about at school. According to Tommy, there was a specific path through our neighborhood that would get you the best candy. Full-size bars, homemade treats, even some houses that gave out toys. Tommy says you have to start at the Blue House on Maple Street at exactly 7 p.m., Marcus explained, as I helped him into his superhero costume. Then you go in order: the house with the stone lions, the yellow house with the big oak tree, the house where the old lady with cats lives, and you finish at the red house at the end of Elm Street. I knew most of these houses, and they were known for giving out great candy, so I didn't see any harm in following Tommy's route. Marcus was excited, and that's all that mattered to me. We started at the Blue House right at 7 p.m. Mrs. Patterson answered the door and gave Marcus 2 full-size Snickers bars, commenting on how handsome he looked in his costume. So far, so good. The Stone Lion's house was next. I'd never met the owner, but he was generous with king-size Reese's cups and complimented Marcus on choosing such a classic hero costume. Marcus beamed with pride. At the yellow house with the oak tree, something felt a little off. The elderly man who answered seemed surprised to see us, like he wasn't expecting trick-or-treaters. But he invited us in to pick from a huge bowl of premium chocolates, the expensive kind you get at specialty shops. "You're following the route, aren't you?" he asked as Marcus carefully selected his favorites. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied. "Tommy told me about it." The man's smile seemed strained. Of course he did. Tommy's a good boy, very dedicated to tradition. As we left, I noticed the man watching us from his window, and he didn't turn away when he saw me looking back. The cat lady's house was 4th on the list. I'd expected a stereotypical crazy cat lady, but the woman who answered was normal, middle-aged with only 2 cats visible. She gave Marcus some homemade caramel apples that looked absolutely delicious. "These are special," she said, handing him a small bag. "My grandmother's recipe, only made on Halloween night, only for children who are following the traditional route." "What traditional route?" I asked. She looked at me strangely. "The one Tommy told your nephew about, of course. The same route children have been following in this neighborhood for, well, longer than you might think." As we walked toward the final house, I started feeling uneasy. The streets seemed quieter than they should be on Halloween night. We'd seen plenty of decorations and lit jack-o'-lanterns, but remarkably few other trick-or-treaters. "Uncle Dave," Marcus said as we approached the red house. "I feel funny." I looked down at him. His face was pale and he seemed tired. "Do you want to go home?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. "Tommy said I have to finish the route. He said it's really important that I make it to the red house." The red house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, separated from its neighbors by overgrown hedges. It was a Victorian-style home that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1950s. The porch light was on, and jack-o'-lanterns lined the walkway, but something about the place made my skin crawl. We walked up to the front door, and before we could knock, it opened. A boy about Marcus's age stood there, dressed in a cowboy costume that looked vintage, like something from an old Western movie. He had sandy brown hair and a friendly smile. "Hi, Marcus," he said. "I'm Tommy. I've been waiting for you." My blood went cold. Marcus had never mentioned that Tommy lived on the route, and something about this kid seemed wrong. His costume looked too real, too old, and his skin had a strange, waxy quality in the porch light. "Tommy!" Marcus said excitedly. "I followed the whole route, just like you said." "I know you did," Tommy replied. "You did perfect, and now you get the best treat of all." He held out a small, wrapped candy that looked like it had been made decades ago. The wrapper was faded, and the edges were yellowed with age. "What kind of candy is that?" I asked, stepping closer to Marcus. Tommy looked at me with eyes that seemed much older than his apparent age. It's special Halloween candy, made just for kids who complete the route. It helps them become part of the neighborhood tradition. Marcus, don't... I started to say, but Marcus had already unwrapped the candy and popped it in his mouth. It tastes like Halloween night, Marcus said, his voice becoming dreamy. Like pumpkins and autumn leaves and forever. I grabbed Marcus's hand, but it felt cold, unnaturally cold. Thank you for bringing him, Tommy said to me. Every year someone new needs to complete the route. Someone needs to take my place so I can finally rest. What are you talking about? I demanded. But even as I asked, I could see Marcus changing. His skin was becoming pale and waxy, just like Tommy's. I've been waiting since 1962, Tommy explained. That's when I first followed the route. That's when I ate the special candy. I've been 7 years old every Halloween since then, waiting for someone to take my turn. Marcus looked up at me, but his eyes were different now. Older, sadder. I have to stay, Uncle Dave, he said in a voice that sounded nothing like my nephew. I have to tell other kids about the route. I have to make sure the tradition continues. I tried to pull him away, but he wouldn't budge. It was like he was rooted to the spot. Tommy smiled and began walking down the street, his cowboy boots making no sound on the pavement. As he reached the sidewalk, he started to fade, becoming translucent until he finally disappeared entirely. I'll see you next Halloween, Uncle Dave, Marcus said, his small hand slipping from mine. Maybe you can bring the next kid. Maybe you can help them find the perfect route. He stepped back into the red house and the door closed with a sound like a coffin lid. I've been standing on this porch for 3 hours now, pounding on the door, calling his name. But the house is silent, and when I look through the windows, I can't see anything but darkness. Tomorrow, I'll call the police, though I know they won't believe me. I'll search for Marcus, though I know I won't find him. And next Halloween, when some kid at school tells their friend about a perfect trick-or-treat route that starts at a blue house on Maple Street, I think I know what I'll have to do. Because Marcus is right, the tradition has to continue, and I'm the only one who knows how it works. Thank you for listening. If you really like the story, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more daily horror stories. Thanks.